it's not. It's construction everywhere. I cannot get away from construction. I'm at a different place and they're doing construction right near me. Anyway, I'm not even at my house. I'm at a different place and they're doing construction. So yeah, with this, we're going to, I mean, this is, there's a lot we need to do here because we're going to do all the CRUD actions on this page. So we could do this in our Trello card or just like right here, kind of like a little bit of a game plan. So, you know, we need to get in render G's or G and things. We need to like create form. And for this one, we're going to have the update and create be the same. We're also going to need to figure out how to do this with semantic UI React. What else? We're going to need to do delete. This is like from DB and, you know, in the UI as well. You know, create and update. And there's also like another one of like, how do we want, I think we said we were going to do the toggle. Let's do the toggle UI form in thing. So these are all things: delete thing, create thing, update thing. On this page. Cool. So there's a lot to do here. I think getting, this one's probably the first one to do, just so we have some stuff to work with. But we're all doing this, you know, without a functional database. Now, for your hackathon, you might just want to wait until your database is, your backend's working. So you know you have your backend working, and that's fine. I will say this though, if your database is not working, but your front end is like making it look like it's updating and deleting and creating, you might get full credit for that, because I don't know if we're going to notice that your backend's not working. We'll see if we're like smart enough to ask you to like refresh your page. So you could get full credit if you do it this way. I'm not saying you will. You'll definitely get some credit if you have this front end working and your back end's not working and you show all the CRUD actions on the front end, you'll definitely get partial credit. Just likewise, if you do the back end and you show us on Postman that it's working, you'll get partial credit. But another thing you have to do is you have to present your app to both your other full-time people, and then part-time is going to be there as well. So you have to demo your app in front of everyone. So even if your back end wasn't working and you had your front end kind of doing this, people would be like, wow, they got really far. So, and this is definitely, as we saw, like the back end took like 20 minutes. This is a lot harder. This is definitely the hard part. But this is kind of the like thing you're showing off. So if you want to try to do it without a database, you can. And so here's the important part is I know what my even though my database is not done, I know what it's going to come back like. Because in theory, I talked about that with Sally. It's like if you do this request, you're going to get back this kind of data. So I can do this. I can say like const dummy, res data. It's not going to be an array. This time it's going to be an object. And it's going to have the GE, which is going to be the object. That's going to have a name, description. And then, probably, it's going to have an ID. And then a category. All right, and then it's also going to have things, which is going to be the array of objects that just have an ID. And a name. So I can create this dummy data that I now can work with. This is like the challenge. This is like the trick if I don't have my database working. So I can come up here. I can grab use state. Let's also grab Axios while we're here. And then I can just kind of do my standard. Oh wait, we need use effect too. Use effect. My standard like component did mount call. So we do our use effect. There's the function, there's the empty dependency array. And I can set up some state, and then I want my G, set G. What should this initially be? And likewise with the things. Any ideas?
The GE should be an object.
Yeah, I could have that be null or an object because that's what it is. And then the things, probably just an empty array. So I can do my get, I'm just going to call this get data. And then I can just define it down here. There's my ancient call. This is where I'm going to do my Axios. Do a try, catch. So I can let my response equal Axios dot get. Now, something I do have right here, if you remember, I am actually passing the appropriate ID. We did this yesterday by using the params. I'm actually passing the right, like the G ID. So I can go ahead and plop that in there. So I actually do have the ID from the G. That's the actual one. And then I could do set G. I believe that's going to be res.data.g. And then I could set things to res.data.things. And I need the await here. can do an alert error console.log error. I'm just going to console.log it because I don't want to see that alert. But the alert might be nice for you to have just so you know something did go wrong. Because I know a lot of you still don't open up your console. Shame. So this can be a way like you actually see the error. Okay. Questions on this?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I just really want to understand how, why, why is G an object and things are, why is that a hash or no, an array?
It is so how we did it on the back end when we rendered JSON.
Mhm.
Remember how we rendered JSON and then we like created the hash in Ruby where it said G, and then that was the G, and then we did things, which was G dot things.
Yes.
So what that's going to look like when we get this data back in our front end is we're going to have a G, and that's going to be one object, just one item. Our things is going to be an array of things. So the reason why is because G is just one thing. Things is many items. G is one object. Things is an array of objects.
Right, because G has many. So it's an array. Okay.
Well, it's also just because this is the G show pages. So we're showing one G.
Oh, I gotcha.
And then the G has many things. So that's the array.
Right. So on the G's page, G would be an array.
Yeah, on the G's page. Yeah, because we did that. If we go to the G's, yeah, that's in an array because we're getting all of them.
Yeah, so that's what we've seen before is an array in use state. And so I just needed to understand why the other one had the curly brackets.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because it's just going to be an empty object. Because we're expecting that to be, once we get it, this is what like a G looks like. It has the key ID, name, description, category. And use state, this is just like what we want the default value to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have like loading, set loading, and by default, I could say, hey, I want that to be true.
By the way, what do you do if by default it's supposed to be a number? Do you just set it to 0?
0.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be any type. This can be any type of data. It could be a number, it could be a string.
Yeah.
And whatever.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
On line 43, do we need to do API/Gs/ then the ID?
Yes, we do. Thank you. And I should probably even do a slash there. That can sometimes mess you up. So slash API/Gs. Yeah, once again, we're following conventions, so you might not, and since we did this at the start of yesterday, even as the front end developer, you could go in and look at your routes. You could start up your Rails server. Like, oh, what is that route going to be? I need to go to my things index method. There it is. That's why like it might be good before, like one of the first things you should maybe do is get all your routes defined. Because then your back end and front end can be on the same page. Get all your routes defined and like say, hey, this is what these are going to return. You don't have to get them done, but if you can say, just like we just did kind of up here, you can kind of define your API. It's going to help out a lot. Okay, so I could test this out. Go to my show suite. There's my error, getting my 404 error, which is expected because this is not defined. I mean, my route is defined, but I'm hitting this action index could not be found error. So what I could do here is, there's my error handling. I can comment it out for now because instead of using this res.data, I can use my dummy res data. And just set those. I shouldn't see that error. I shouldn't see the alerts.
Do you mean to have your set G and set things under the catch error?
Yeah, because
Oh, okay.
because I know this is confusing because I'm like trying to do 2 developers at the same time. So technically, even though we did the CRUD actions for our things controller, like in this project, they're not done because I haven't pulled from master, so I don't have these changes. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of just pretending like, well, let's see how much we can get done without the backend actually being done. So I just created this dummy data because this is what I'm expecting to get back once the backend's working. So what I'm doing is I'm going to try to do this. I know it's going to fail because it's not defined. And then I'm going to use my dummy data to continue on. Because what happens is I had this experience where like, yeah, I was trying to build out, I didn't quite know how to do this at the time, but like I was working on that mobile app for teleperformance and like they hadn't even started working on the back end. It was like nowhere near to even being complete. And they're like telling me to finish the mobile app. So I'm like, wait, what? How do I finish the app if there's no back end? Well, they're like, well, you can get most of it done. It's like, okay. And then they kind of explained this to me. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I can. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Okay.
Because you might, be I think and a lot of the time what you're going to do, like you're going to get a feature and you're probably going to work at it. I mean, if you're a front-end developer and you have like a back-end developer, it's likely that you will be working on these things at the same time. I mean, other cases where like I definitely worked in spots where it's like, we'll get the back end done and then you can work on it. Just depends. So with this, yeah, now I can come into my components. And yeah, I can see now here in my state, I have those set up. So I have my G, and this is all dummy data, but it's there. Cool. And now I can start like rendering this out. So let's do like a render G component. And actually, yeah, let's not use that. Let's do a different one. Let's come in here and just do this here. Let's do a render G. Just do this in a div. Does it has a name? And do the description for now. Let's just keep this simple. And then we can just call that function render. Here, we'll just render G. Need a const here, const render G. I no longer need that header. I can do this ID from React router. So that's clear what's going on there. Okay. So we have our ID2. See, that's matching our param up there. We're rendering this G. Let's go ahead and do the things. All right. So let's now do our map function, things.map. I'm gonna go ahead and still what's in here. Maybe we can reuse a lot of this card. And I'll select this out. Because we want I don't know if we want to show, I don't think, we won't do a show on this. It's kind of silly to go to a show page to see the name. Let's do edit. And I don't want that to be a link though, because we're not linking anywhere here. I kind of just want to copy this semantic. And then really, we just have a name. Okay. Let me see what this looks like and then I'll slack it out. Click, I'm just going to delete this for now. So I need to import these card and my button. Render things, const render things. And then let's go ahead and call this that is some lovely UI right there. Nice bright red and blue buttons. Okay, that's good for now. I'll slack out this render things method. I'm gonna make it card full style. Might want to try to make these cards like go all the way. So that might be semantic UI React. Let's look at the card. Maybe the card's not the best component for this, but I wonder if I can add like a width here. This is where you can definitely get like, don't do this on the hackathon, just get stuff working. It's having it a little bit. So now they're taking up, you know, the full width. These buttons are obnoxiously big. Gosh, those are worse. Pixels. Let's see if I can make this not as big. Okay, that's a little better. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of this delete button. We'll do something with that later. Okay, here we go. Awesome. Really not looking for the best styling here, but we get our G and then we can render all of those sub things. Another thing we might want for this is a new button. And first of all, we've kind of done this first step, get and render GE things. So that's kind of done. So what I could do, this might be a good time to commit. So I made a lot of changes. I've got something working. So I mean that's a lot of code. So, and I've got it working, so I can commit this. I don't need to push it. It's not like functional. I want to push it, but I could commit it. Something like that. Rendering GE show page. And now I can move on to one of these like next tasks. Let's do our form. And for now, let's set up let's do a toggle for this. So I'm gonna need some state. Let's call this show new form, or it's just called show form. And set show form. I'm just gonna have this true by default so we can see it. So I don't have to like toggle it all the time. So I should be able to see my form by default. I can come in, add a button here. Toggle form. On click. Just do this with handler right here. Set show form to be not show form. And I can conditionally render show form, and for now we're just like fake a form right here. See if I got this toggler working. So by default, I can see my form. And then when I toggle this, I don't see it. I might want to say something a little more nicer than toggle form. So I could use this show form. So if show form is true, I want this to say like hide form. You know, if it's true, then I could say show form. Or sorry, if it's false, then I want to say show form. There we go. So that's just the toggling of the form. Let's maybe do that same thing with this thing. Now, I kind of want each thing to have that like its own state of toggling the form. Now, I can't really come up here and do like a show thing form because there's going to be many of them. So I can't really like manage the state here. I could manage the state here, but it would definitely get a little messy. So I have to like keep track of which index to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new file. I'm just going to throw all this thing. I'm going to make a thing component. kind of do what I just did with that last form, but for this one. So this one is also going to need use state. And then we can do const thing props. And then for the return, what I'm going to return is just all of this stuff. So I'm taking this right here. I'm just going to render this inside of here. Now I'm using this t.name. Well, I don't no longer have that t, so that needs to be props.name. Then I can return or export default thing. And I need to import my card from Semantic UI React and my button. Cool. I'll slack this out. I won't do that kind of fast. All I'm doing is just replacing this. Now I can do my return thing. I need to make sure I import that and then spread out over the thing to pass down the props. Now, since this is just like a one-liner, now I could like get rid of this return and do an implicit return just to clean this up. Of course, I'm going to screw this up. Turn things.map, need to close it there. You don't have to do this. It just will make this look a little more clean. So that really didn't change anything yet. I just moved all that JSX into a separate component. But now because of that, now in my thing component, I can do something similar that I just did where I have like the const show form state. And just have that be true by default. And then on this edit button, I could have this be like an on click.
You have it saying show from instead of show form.
Oh, thank you. Show form. So here on this edit button, that's where I could toggle this to be not show form. And then maybe, I don't know, like where would I want to put this? Maybe we could put it right here. Now, something like a toggle function for the hackathon. Once again, you're going to get more points for the edit and the create. So you might just not even have this logic and just show the form on all of them. But let's just see. So by default, they're true, but now I can toggle them individually because they each have that, each thing has that show form state. Cool. So now that's like the toggle functionality. Oh, that was a good chunk of work. I could commit this. Toggle form logic. Now I can go in and actually build out my form. So let's go do that. And we're going to do that with semantic. Now, something the semantic form documentation is kind of a little, I don't know, I've struggled with it. It's kind of hard to figure out what's going on. So what I have done, and sometimes it's like in a functional component, sometimes in a class component, which will make it very hard for you to figure out what's going on. So what I've done for you is I've created a little code sandbox. So here's another way you can use like your Trello cards. So I can have like this resources tutorials, and I just have this one semantic forms. And all this is just a link to that code sandbox, because all like the logic stuff is there. I mean, I could add more stuff to explain what's going on, but in here, what I have is, if this ever loads up, is a working example of like a semantic form where I can come in here. It's got a text field, it's got a select box, it's got some radio buttons, it's got like a checkbox, and then an add button. And then when I click add, it logs all the values to the console. So this shows you how to do a text input in semantic. It shows you how to do a select box. It shows you how to do radios and this checkbox. So, because it's not so clear from the documentation on semantic. So I'll select that out. And this is the type of things your cards could be. Your cards could, like, maybe you have a React router card and it links to a code sandbox where you have React router, a demo working. React route, I mean, code sandbox is nice because you can come in here and you can add right here. This is how you kind of do your yarn add. You do your React router. You find your library that you want to add. Now I have like React router installed, and then I can use it. And you have like folder structures, so you can make, components, my index, come in here, have my browser router. I'm going to get rid of these. This doesn't use Redux, and so forth. And then you can have these small little working demos of like, here's just how you do a form in semantic. Here's just how you do basic navigation. Because working code, like if you have an example of working code, that's like the best tutorial or best resource. Because then you can go like, well, what are they doing that's working that I'm not? So keep these simple. So one thing about semantic, a couple things. We don't need to do the e.prevent default. They do that for us, but it doesn't hurt if you call that inside of here. A lot of people, like once we start using semantic and then they go onto like Bootstrap, they totally forget they have to do that. And then they don't know why their app's breaking. So not needed. So just use, I'm not going to go over this. I'm just going to go over the input, the text input today, because we don't need more than that. But if you ever want like a drop down, you want a radio, you want a checkbox. This is, and you're doing it in semantic, this is your reference. If you're doing it in Bootstrap, this won't work. This is semantic UI specific. Does everyone know the difference between like So select, that just gives you the drop down. Radio buttons, obviously you can have multiple, you can have as many buttons as you want, pick one. This is kind of like a true or false value. The checkbox. So cool. So I'm just gonna do the form and kind of assume you can, I'll show you how to do the text input, and then yeah, you can use this as a resource. So let's go build out our form now, since that's where we're at. And do new file, let's do thing form. So this is going to be for both update and create. So I'll show you, because we're kind of doing this in two different ways. Like with the G's, I'm showing you how to use React Router and to do it on separate pages. But with the things, we're going to do all the CRUD actions on one page with the same form. So there'll be some variety here. Okay. So let's go ahead and start building out this form. So React. I am going to want use state. Let's thing form. Props. And return. Okay, so I'm just going to start building this out. I'm going to get my form from Semantic UI. Let's just do the on change or on submit. Go ahead and define that. Handle submit. Okay, so there's my form. Let's close that off. Okay, what else do we want in here? So this is just for our thing. So we just have a name, right? So I actually have forgotten, even though I just did this morning. So we're going to do a label and then an input. And sure, I can go ahead and throw this in the form field. So instead of like, if I'm copying and pasting this from the example, this obviously shouldn't say text field. This is going to be the name. The value is going to be the name. And this is going to be set name. And then I need that name state. And we'll just actually, since this is going to be an edit form too, I'm going to check right here. Do we have props.name? Question mark. If we do, that should be our default value. If not, we'll just go with an empty string. Then we can export default thing form.
I think you named the file thing from.
Thing from, oh, I did. Okay. Thank you. Thing form. So many times I do that today. Oh, here's a little question, trick question, or not a trick question. Okay, so I'm not using this parameter right here. For this is, remember, this is just a function. I'm creating a function right here. I'm defining a function, just an anonymous arrow function. And I'm not using this eval right here. So it's like kind of grayed out. Now, normally when stuff's grayed out, we don't want to use it, right? What happens if I get rid of that?
Is that supposed to be like a key and a value? So the value would become the key. Does that make sense? Like the value is supposed to be in the second place. So you need a placeholder.
Yeah, I think you're, because this is, yeah, so when I define the function, or this is actually, so the input, so this input has this onChange prop, and it's expecting a function whose first argument is going to be the event. And then the second one is going to be an object that has value. So if I get rid of this E, it's going to try to pull this value off of the event, which it's not going to exist. Let me kind of do this in a demo down here. Let's say I have a const, like add function, or let's just do, I don't know, whatever, rand. And it expects a number for the first one and then an array for the second argument. Let's do an object. Let's do an array. Changing my mind. And you know, because it does like console.log num +1 and then console.log array dot length. So there's my random function. So this is the definition. So if I call this function and give it something like that, that's going to work, right? Because this first thing's a number and this second thing's in an array. If I just do something like that and get rid of that argument, or let's just leave it like, let's leave these the same, because this is how it's going to get called. Like this is right, this is going to work, right? But if I come here and get rid of that num, well, what, and just say array, well, what is num right now? Well, that's undefined. That breaks. What is array in this case? In when I call this?
It's just one.
Yeah, it's 1. So I'm going to do 1.length. That's an error. So this input function, or sorry, this onChange, it's expecting you give it a function. You define this function that has these 2 parameters. So me getting rid of like E would be the same as me getting rid of number here. Yeah, maybe I don't use number in here, but I need it in there because the second thing needs to be in an array. So I cannot delete that E. Just in the same reason I couldn't delete this num, because it would break this call. All right, let's and then let's do a button on this. Let's give our type equals submit. And let's also use this trick. Do we have props.id? If we have the ID, then this should be like this. We know that's an update. Then we'll say add. If we don't have an ID, then we'll say add for this button. And then I also want to console.log name, just to make sure we're setting up that right. And submit. I spelled it wrong here. Cool. So there's my form. It's not doing any API calls, but it should maybe be set up for my update and create. So it's kind of, that should be working. Oh, I need to actually render it now. So let's go back to my thing. So instead of just doing this form here, that placeholder, let's actually grab the thing form. And then just pass down props. Because props is going to have like the props.name, props.id. So we can actually just take the props and pass them down. Same thing as me going like name equals props.name. I want to do that. I'm lazy. Just do it like that. Input's not defined. So my thing form, I forgot to import input. So let's grab that from Semantic UI React. I don't think I did it there. Edit. So that's working. So on my form, I have the gthing1, and there it is, the update button. Toggle that. That works. Cool. What else? Let's go to my show page and render the form here. This is a new one, so I don't need to pass it anything, any props or anything. And that one's blank and says @. So now that is working. Questions on this? This could be a good time to commit. Go through our changes. That looks good. That looks good. Commit this thing form UI. So notice as I'm doing this, I'm doing a lot of commits, but I'm not necessarily pushing up to master. But I'm still making commits while my code is semi-functional. Like my code, I think it's a good idea. It's not always possible, but you know, commit when you have it to like you have like a subtask done, and you have it at kind of like a working state. There's all of that. So now we can try to start working on actually doing these calls and updating the UI. So let's take a break before that. Any questions on this? Does anyone need any of this code? I'm not going to push this up to master quite yet, just because I can't push it up to master without polling. So if you need any of this code, I'll slack it out. Okay, let's take a break. Let's come back at 11:40.